Hello, everyone. Welcome to a day in the life of Desiree's edition of Moved by the Music. Today, I have the pleasure of talking with the 8-time Grammy-nominated super saxophonist that we all know and love, Gerald Albright. Gerald Albright released his very first album called Just Between Us back in 1987. He is truly a musical legend with a career up to now that has spanned 3 decades. And on May 18th, Gerald released an album that celebrated his 30th year as a solo artist, suitably titled 30. The album is the perfect collection of unique, high-energy remix classics like Suki Suki, Bermuda Nights, and New Beginnings. Welcome to the show, Gerald.
Hey Desirae, Gerald Albright here. I am truly looking forward to our chat today. Let's do it.
Absolutely, Gerald. I've been looking forward to speaking with you too. I love your music and I have so many things to ask you. But before I get to any of that, first and foremost, congratulations on all of your success. I mean, wow, 30 years. 30 years as a solo artist is absolutely amazing, especially because you're only 45 years young, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. And it's nice to still be in the game and still putting out the music that people know and love. So I feel very blessed.
Yes, it's awesome. I wanted to ask you about parenting. Parenting is something that so many of us do, and parents often want to involve their children in activities that are known to make them well-rounded and just worldly. And I know that your parents played a role in wanting you to play an instrument, but you weren't really too happy with their choice at first. So from your perspective as a young child, being 8 years old, what did the saxophone give you that the piano couldn't at the time?
Well, the saxophone to me at the age of 8 or 9 years old looked like a toy to me, actually. When my private teacher, God rest his soul, named George Turpo, presented it to me, I opened the case and I could smell the history in this old case of a saxophone that he used to play back in the Army days. And long story short, we put the saxophone together and he showed me the mouthpiece and the reed and the ligature and said, we're going to put this together and we want to make some sound today. And when I made my first squeak out of the horn, I knew that it felt a lot closer to me than the piano initially did. So I had more of an inclination to learn this particular instrument. And, it's just a little more interesting for an 8 or 9 year old to press the keys on it and blow it. And as a result of you blowing through it, you create this sound, whatever comes out the other end, So it's just more interesting as opposed to piano at the time.
Yeah, plus you were able to carry that around instead of having a piano just stationary there, so you couldn't really move it.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay. Well, what advice would you give to parents who kind of want to put, some type of art into their child's life? Would you advise them to let them make their own decision, or how would you advise a parent to go about that?
Well, I would do it a little differently than my parents did, actually. My parents were old school, so the piano was kind of like the default instrument for all parents back in that time period. But nowadays, mostly in a lot of the curriculums in the schools, there's more of a plethora of options for children to try different types of instruments, and as a parent I would definitely want my kids to be exposed to music, and but not only piano. I'd like them to explore the brass, the woodwinds, maybe even drums or percussion or something like that, or vocals, and just see what fits within their particular interests at the time and let them go towards that.
Right, and I agree with that, letting them make some of their own choices with that. And all children love choices. So if you just present them with one thing, usually they're going to kind of rebel against that and try to go another way. So
exactly.
That's great advice that you gave. Okay. Well, just like anything people do by choice, we're motivated by something. Things motivate us, and everybody who is involved with music or instrumentalists has their own motivations as to why they play. So whether it's internal or external or both, at what point after you learned how to play the saxophone did you change it kind of from a practice to a passion?
Well, I think a lot of it was basically the household that I grew up in. I grew up in a Baptist church, so my mom sung in the choir. My brother played piano and trombone. I sung in the junior choir, as they called it back then. And so I was always around music, and I think that was the catalyst behind me really developing the passion. If I had to target a particular chapter, I would say that I was fortunate that my brother, who was 8 years my senior, had literally every James Brown record that he had recorded at the time, and this is what I would hear in the household every day, is James Brown. And out of that James Brown discography, the wonderful sound of Maceo Parker on alto sax really captured my interest because of the clarity of his sound and the rhythmic aspect of his approach to the horn. And I wanted to sound like Maceo. And ironically, just about 4 or 5 weeks ago, for the first time in my career, I got a chance to share the stage with Maceo Parker, which for me, I was like a little kid in the candy store, you know. And so
that's awesome.
You know, exactly. So just trying to emulate Maceo at the time, and you know, my passion got a lot stronger. And then later on in high school, I was introduced to Cannonball Adderley, who was on another level of improvisation. And so between those two guys, I just, you know, I wanted to be like them, you know, and that's what really fueled my passion.
That's awesome. I like that you explained that for everybody, because there's a difference between practicing something just because and actually doing it because you love it. And that's when that passion comes out. And it shows in the music and it shows in your style. So that was a great anecdote to share with everybody. So 30, let's talk about 30. 30 signifies so much greatness that surrounded you in your career for 3 decades. Did you ever envision this moment in time back when you started in 1987?
What I did envision was that I knew music in some capacity was going to be part of my life. At that point early on, I didn't know that it was going to be the actual job for me or vocation for me. But I did know at the time that music was the one element that made me feel comfortable. It was therapeutic for me. I really got excited every time I got a chance to play my horn, either in the practice room or in front of people. And as a shy kid, that was kind of like my outlet to get out of that shyness. You know, I could actually speak through my horn, and people could appreciate the sound of the horn and my personality through the horn. And so, you know, 30 years later as a recording artist, I'm glad that I made the moves that I did vocationally. If I had it to do all over again, I would do it the same way. I would be a musician. And the interesting thing these days is that, you know, a lot of people, a lot of peers that I know and I see on a daily basis, you know, they'll talk about retirement. You know, it's like, well, in 3 or 4 years, I get a chance to retire, you know, and I'm like, how can I retire from music? I don't think there's anything.
Right. I don't think you can. It's a creative thing, and creativity never takes a break.
Exactly. So, you know, I don't think there's a definitive day where I say, okay, this is when I'm going to hang up my saxophone and never play it again. That just doesn't happen. So I'm just going to ride it out, you know, until my last breath and enjoy it during the process.
That's right. That's awesome. Mm-hmm. You know, speaking of, you know, how passionate you are about music, and music is, you know, universally powerful. It can evoke strong emotions from someone at any given moment while they're listening to it. It's known to heal and inspire and take us back to places we once were or places we want to be. And when we hear the name Gerald Albright, people's minds immediately go to you being a stellar saxophonist. And aside from you making people feel a certain way through your music, what message do you want your music to convey to people, no matter what corner of the world they're living in and no matter what they're going through? What is the meaning behind your music?
Well, that's a great question, Desirae. I would say that with all of the mayhem that's in the world today, from economic challenges and political challenges and racial challenges and the whole thing, music seems to be that common escape for people, not only domestically but globally. People say all the time, thank you for your concert. I was able to escape from whatever for a few hours, and I got a chance to just feel good, feel better, and get your message. And that message for me is this unity, this global unity. I just like to see our world be a better place, and being in the craft of music for so long, I deem myself and a lot of my colleagues who are dear friends of mine, we're actually messengers of the music now. And we're trying to deliver a daily message through our music that, the world can be a better place. It can be handled a better way. And so that's our whole goal right now, is to better the world through our music. And I am fascinated, even after all these years, Desirae, how powerful music is. And especially my genre of music that doesn't really have a lot of lyrics that people can kind of embrace. People have to kind of feel the emotion and the soul of the horn and the musicians that I play with, both live and in the studio, in order to derive the message that we're trying to convey. And it's just fascinating that I can go to any country and people recognize the music and they understand within their language what my music is trying to convey. And that is always just fascinated me. That's a real phenomenon for me. And that's why I keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, that's how you're moved by the music. And I want to add to that, with music being able to touch so many people. I mean, I've even noticed with my son, who's almost 3 years old, I can play a melody that's, upbeat and has a nice tempo and he's happy. And as soon as something comes on that's a little bit more subdued and maybe slow, sometimes he'll say, oh, Mommy, that makes me sad, or it changes his mood. And that's what music can do. It has that kind of power to change your mood. And it's something that everybody on any continent can relate to.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so what's been the most challenging time in your career, and what got you through it? There's been some great things going on in career for the past 30 years, but with that, have there been any challenges that stand out for you that you can share, and how did you get through that?
Well, I tell you, I always say to people that I do music for free, but I get paid for the travel. And that's true even today. I mean, I don't travel and do as many shows as I used to. I mean, I used to be a part of major tours like Whitney Houston, Anita Baker, Phil Collins, and they would go out for weeks and months at a time. And at any level, no matter how you're traveling, if it's economy, if it's first class, whatever. Being away from home, and just being away from the family for so long, that can be a challenge. And so I think that was my biggest challenge is trying to juggle being the father and the husband along with being the musician and the commitment that I had to my audience, in order to get to them to perform or to, go in the studio and crank out all these various albums that I've had the pleasure of doing. And so it's been a juggling thing, but we come from a very close-knit family, and whatever challenges we had during that particular journey, we were able to work out both in a spiritual and very honest and vocal sense, So that's
awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing that because, sometimes you have to go within to work out things, but it also helps when you have a support system around you who can help you get through those things. So speaking of things and moving and things like that, you are now in Colorado, and I know you're originally from California. And California is beautiful. It's beautiful mountains and has gorgeous scenery, and it's great. It's peaceful. So what attracted you to Colorado based on all the other 50 states? What made Colorado stand out for you?
Well, being a native of California, I spent all my life in Los Angeles and neighboring cities of L.A. And as I got older, me and my wife, Glennis, we would have these reoccurring conversations about, okay, what's the next chapter? Are we going to spend the rest of our lives in L.A., or are we going to try to find a region of the country that has a little slower pace, but, some clean air and the people are real cool, and you still have the big city feel, but it has this small town overtone to it. And, we talked about Texas for a while. When back in the day, the real estate market in Atlanta was booming. Everybody seemed to be moving to Atlanta. We had thought about that. But it really didn't settle into those two states, Georgia and Texas. But I happened to do a gig here in 2004, and the promoter, who's a dear friend of mine, I had mentioned to him before coming to Denver, I said, I've been to Denver a few times, but I've never really captured the essence of Colorado. I know it's a beautiful state, and, you got your mountains and your pine trees and your snow and your different, changes of the seasons and all that. But I've only gone in to do a show, and then I'd go to the next city the next day. I've never had a chance to really embrace Colorado. And he said, well, I'll tell you what, my family is in the real estate business, and we have just staged a condo, which is livable. We just put new furniture and everything in it. We're trying to sell it. But in the meantime, why don't you and your wife fly in early, and you guys can stay at the condo, and me and my business partner, who ironically was a realtor at the time, can take you around, and you can, look at homes or whatever you want to look at here in Colorado. And I said, great. And so long story short, that's what we did. And after the second day of being here, it just felt like home. And lo and behold, literally 45 days later, we moved from California to Colorado and never looked back. So.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's a beautiful, beautiful place to be. And I know that it's so scenic and peaceful, and you have all the things of nature out there around you. Nothing like you can get, out in Los Angeles.
Right. One thing, even now when I go to L.A., I get off the plane and I get in my rental car and I hit that 405 freeway, and the traffic is just a reminder of one of the reasons why I moved away. I just,
that will deter anybody.
Yeah, and don't get me wrong, Desirae, I love L.A. I love it on all levels. And there's some dear friends that we left, unfortunately, in the process of moving to Colorado. But I just feel more peaceful here. I'm more balanced here. The family is having a great time here. And it was a good move for us. So we think we did the right thing.
Well, that's what they make planes for. People can get on a plane and fly and visit. You can go somewhere, but you can always go back home. And home is where you feel the most comfortable. And if you find peace somewhere, that's somewhere you would call home. So I definitely would agree with that. You need to get away sometimes from all the hustle and bustle of the world. And in order to do that, sometimes you have to, step away from all of that and put yourself in a new position.
Exactly. And I think that step away that you described really enhanced my career, because I really got a chance to get out of the element that I was in and really kind of take a panoramic snapshot of what I wanted to do next. And so it just gave me that clarity to, pursue what now is my own record company, my own management company. And I just have more control and more independence over my career now, which I'm very, very excited about.
Yes, we're all excited about that. And I know back in April you spent some time in Nigeria. You were at the World International Jazz Festival in Lagos, and Nigeria is one of the most populous cities